Hello there. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being. For all, a veritable cornucopia of topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts. The number to call or text is 719-247-1313. A recurring theme throughout the show today will be the idea of pressure. And let's start with the Denver Broncos and whether this game on Sunday has pressure on it, or the Broncos have pressure on themselves going into this game with the Chargers. Here's Sean Payton when asked about the importance of a divisional game, given the fact that the Chargers are already 2-0 in the division, and this is the Broncos' first foray in the AFC West.
Division games are important because if you are able to win one, then your division opponent loses one. And I can't do the analytics or the math, but ultimately, it's an AFC opponent. It's our first opportunity to play a division team and a team that's playing well. So I don't think it changes in preparation. Both teams probably are a little bit more familiar with each other, scheme and personnel-wise. But certainly the division games are really important.
So not really giving into any idea that this is a must-win or anything like that, or the pressures on the Denver Broncos to win. That Sean Payton answer, while I appreciate the math at the beginning of it, yes, if you win one, then your opponent doesn't win one. But what I think Sean Payton is alluding to is, look, this is a divisional game. This is important regardless of what has happened the previous 2 weeks. This is an important game. But let's take that idea of pressure. Are the Broncos under pressure to win this game? I don't think that they are. I think that even though Sean Payton may have been a little evasive and not really answering the question that was posed to him, I think his sentiment is correct. The pressure that is on the Denver Broncos in terms of needing to win is just the math of winning the division, right? But this is the first of 2 meetings with the Chargers. This is their first divisional game. Everyone plays the same amount of divisional games. So the fact that the Chargers, and it's a little bit of weird scheduling, the fact that they've played 2 games already inside the division, and even if they win, they're 3-0, like everybody's going to catch up, right? And it's none of the Broncos' concern whether the Chiefs or the Raiders could beat the Chargers. They got to beat the Chargers. So I don't think that there's any more pressure to win than there would have been had the Broncos been 2-0 going into this game. But where the pressure is on this team, I think it's not a must win, but it's a must respond. This team has to show that they're ready to play complementary football, to have both the offense and the defense operating at a decent level to give them a chance to win a game against one of the elite teams in the NFL, which the Chargers are. That's what pressure is on the Denver Broncos. It's the pressure to be less of a mess than they have been through 2 games. To not be so one-dimensional. Either the defense is working or the offense is working, and the other one isn't. So there's the pressure for the Denver Broncos. Just look like you belong on the field with a team that has early on established itself as one of the better teams in the NFL. Chargers have looked really good through 2 weeks. Broncos right now are not trending in a direction to where you can have any level of confidence that they'll be able to go into LA and win. But momentum from 1 week to the next, little bit overrated. So this isn't about a team that's stumbling as long as they have mentally moved on from the Indianapolis loss. And that's the first thing, right? As long as that's not weighing on their minds, you can essentially wipe the slate clean and just say, all right, it's about this game. But some of the habits, some of the issues with the Denver Broncos, there's reason to believe that those will continue. Dre Greenlaw, here's the update from Sean Payton, and we'll talk about that.
We felt like he's kind of on our schedule, and look, we spend time on it because it's a little nebulous relative to the injury, and that's all I'll say.
Soft tissue. That's the nebulous part that Sean Payton is alluding to. I think they were hopeful. They were hopeful that Dre Greenlaw would be back this week or next week. Not filled with a lot of optimism that he will play against the Chargers. And if he doesn't, then you might be a little bit worried about Ladd McConkey running around. Although we could talk about this. Is that the guy that Surtain covers? Because Quentin Johnson all of a sudden is become a reliable receiver for Justin Fields. But the Chargers will use Ladd McConkey to attack the coverage at the second level of the defense, to attack Alex Singleton and Justin Stranad. Even if Dre Greenlaw plays, I think Jim Harbaugh would be wise to instruct his offensive coordinator to test that, see how Dre Greenlaw responds. So what the Colts were able to exploit a ton on Sunday, I think the Chargers have the personnel and the ability to do it. And even if Dre Greenlaw plays, I don't think that the game plan changes much. It just gives the Broncos a better opportunity to defend the pass at that level. But this Broncos defense needs to respond, because the Chargers offensive line, I know they're missing Rashawn Slater. They're still very good, and they still have one of the best tackles in the league in Joe Alt. Broncos don't have a chance. I talked about this yesterday. They don't have a chance if they can't pressure Justin Herbert. Justin Fields, never far from my mind. Got to keep contained. Justin Herbert, with his legs, has shown the ability to hurt teams. Just ask the Kansas City Chiefs. But the defense has got to be better. Now, to that end, something interesting Sean Payton brought up, courtesy of his old mentor, Bill Parcells.
One of the lessons that Parcells always taught me, sometimes in a high-scoring game, that's the way it's going. You've got to score enough. And then sometimes in a low-scoring game defensively, you've got to – and so he would look at it the opposite way. And I too, look at that like, despite their output, we're in the red zone 2 different occasions where, we come back home with a different result. So some games move in a direction, and then if it's a higher scoring game, then offensively you've got to match. And if it's a lower scoring game, then defensively. So, there were a number of things, and I pointed it out on the Monday call, that you would look back on and say, all right, we have to get this cleaned up.
So it sounds like Sean Payton is looking at his offense more than his defense after that game against the Colts, which is different than what I am, probably different than what you came away with, because you looked at the offense just like I did and said, yeah, there were the mistakes late in the game from the offense, but overall it was a very good day. But you can kind of see Sean Payton's point. One, he's an offensive guy, so he's always thinking through that lens. But also, two, you saw what the Indianapolis Colts offense was able to do against the Denver Broncos defense. That was only missing one of their players in Dre Greenlaw and is supposed to be the best in the NFL. If the Colts could do what they did against the Broncos defense, you could follow Sean Payton's logic here. Why couldn't the Broncos do exactly that to a severely undermanned Colts defense? I can see it. I can understand what he's getting at. And if you really want it, to me, it's like the Titans game. Right? With the Titans game, you looked at the defense and you said, were they playing as well as they possibly could? No. But did they do plenty to win that football game? Yes. And I'll flip it for the Colts game and say the Broncos offense, I know they weren't perfect. I know they were lacking in some areas. And I understand what Sean Payton is saying, but I look at it and say Bo Nix and the offense did plenty to win that football game. And it was the defense that ultimately let them down, both in coverage and in getting pressure on Daniel Jones, getting pressure and sacking him, I should say. Daniel Jones did elude some pressure on occasion on Sunday. But that is an interesting way to look at it. And I get, game flow. If a game is going a certain way, you got to adjust. And you're like, okay, today our offense has got to be great. So if this is a high-scoring game, let's talk about the Broncos offense. And then bring back today's theme of pressure. Bo Nix this year, through 2 games, and it's something that I've highlighted on numerous occasions. Bo Nix throwing the football under pressure, not great. Not great. And not only not great, I mean, I could sit here and spew numbers. His completion percentage under pressure versus in a clean pocket is 20% less. He's thrown 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, had the fumble when he's been under pressure, when he's had a clean pocket, 3 touchdowns and a pick. His quarterback rating varies about 35 to 40 points. But really what matters, because you would say, well, every quarterback is a little bit worse when they're under pressure. Fair. Bo Nix, when he's had a clean pocket this year, is about a top 20 quarterback. Essentially, when Bo Nix has a clean pocket, he's Bo Nix. He's what Bo Nix is. Top 20 quarterback. Not much higher than that. When he's in a dirty pocket or when he's facing pressure, he's one of the 10 worst quarterbacks in the league. So pressure on Bo Nix is not a good thing. Right now, he does not have the ability to beat pressure unless he runs the football, which I think he's going to have to do against the Chargers. I get the importance of him winning from the pocket, and ultimately that's going to decide whether Bo Nix is a franchise quarterback, his ability to win from the pocket. But we're in game, if you include the Bills game, so we're looking at game 21 of Bo Nix's career. He can use his legs. For a game with the importance of this one, I think Sean Payton should lighten up a little bit on Bo Nix and let him use his legs. because if he has to win the game from the pocket and the Chargers are pressuring him, that won't end well. Because it hasn't ended well through 20 games of Bo Nix's career. Now there's some news on that front. Khalil Mack, injured in the Raider win, got some good news overall, but bad news for the Broncos game. Good news is Khalil Mack's going to be back in a few weeks. Bad news is for the Chargers, Sunday is not in a few weeks. So no Khalil Mack, and it's leading some Broncos fans to say, now Bo Nix isn't going to be under pressure. Dan Henley, has been more effective than Khalil Mack this year. And I know there's a complementary relationship. There's no way that being without Khalil Mack doesn't affect the Chargers. But Henley has been as good, if not better. He's the one that, despite feeling sick, picked off Geno Smith on the first play of that Monday night game. So the Chargers defense isn't just Khalil Mack. Maybe Bo Nix will be under slightly less pressure without Mack. I think that's fair. And this, Khalil Mack being out, can only be good news for the Denver Broncos. But the idea that Bo Nix is going to have a clean pocket all day long and he's not going to be under any pressure and it'll be smooth sailing for the Broncos offense, that's just not the case, because the Chargers last year and even into this year are showing they're one of the best defensive teams in the NFL. Nobody talks about how good the Chargers are defensively. Sure, they talk about Mack, they talk about Derwin James. As a whole, they are a very good defense. And they should be able to sustain the loss of Khalil Mack. Just like the Broncos should, with all the talent they have defensively, make up for the loss of Dre Greenlaw. Sunday, they did not. But if Bo Nix is under pressure, if that pocket is not clean, he needs to be able to have the license from Sean Payton to use his legs, because this is again, it's not a must win, but it's a must respond. And it's one of those games where you throw the long-term development plan out for Bo Nix and you just say, Sunday, what do we need to do to win the football game? And I think they're going to need Bo Nix's running ability to win this football game. And they'll need the running ability of the guy that they got from the Chargers in J.K. Dobbins as well. 719-247-1313. What kind of pressure would you place the Broncos under? Pressure to win? Pressure to merely respond? Pressure to show up? Take your thoughts on that. Just getting going with this Wednesday edition of the show. Coming up next, the hottest team in the city of Colorado Springs. There is one. And their coach joins me next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports here on Extra Sports 1300. The hottest team in Colorado Springs right now is the Air Force volleyball team, 8-1, tying the best start in program history. And you'll have 3 chances to see the Falcons this week at the End of the Blue Invitational. More on that in just a little bit. Joining me now is the head coach of the Falcons, Macy Donathan. Thanks for the time, Coach. Some teams it takes a little time to get going, not so much for your team. How have they been playing at this level right out of the gate like this?
Yeah, I as I've said multiple times in the previous weeks, our team has been working for a long time, ever since the last match of last season. It wasn't pretty. It was my first year and just trying to get this program off the ground. But through the spring and through the summer, we put in a lot of work and just training, trying to implement systems and getting the staff in a good place. And the NCAA also approved for an additional week of practices this year, which is abnormal. That's never happened before. And that really helped us. And every team, every Division I program got access to their athletes. But for us, in years past, preseason started the same day that classes start here. So it was supposed to be August 7th. And most college teams get 2 weeks without class, even interfering with their training. And for us, that additional week gave us a week of true preseason where we got to practice with our team. And that's the first time that's ever happened. And clearly, I think you kind of see what happens when we actually do get to have some of that training with our girls. But I am thankful for that time with them, and that allowed us to get a runway going. And so by the time that matches came, it was really good for us. We were all on the same page, and obviously the foundational work that happened before that helped us as well. So a good schedule for us. I thought we scheduled competitively, and yet we're still seeing some results. So that's a really good sign.
Yeah, I've talked to many of your colleagues. I travel on the road with Stacy and the women's basketball team, talk to Frank with the hockey team, and Troy Calhoun. The time that you get with these cadets, it is so precious. So any additional time that you may be able to get, it just means everything. So I totally get where you're coming from. You talked about last year and the work starting right after. Did you see it? Did you see towards the end of last season that maybe even though the results weren't there, the process was where you wanted it to be?
Absolutely. You look at the record of last year and you're just like, wow, what was this turnaround? And I think the foundation of what you're seeing was laid, at that point in time, a year ago. And just the girls buying into it, they're understanding where I'm coming from. And I'm not a yeller or a screamer or, I'm not that kind of person. But there is a standard, and just trying to meet that standard. And that standard is there to match or go a little bit above what we're going to see in the Mountain West Conference. And so I think they see that, and they know the level in which I have played and have coached. And so obvious that time well spent with our girls, not just in training, but just in creating relationships with them. That was very key. But for sure, when season ended last year, it was one of those, like, they knew that I believed in them. And they knew that if they just spent some more time getting their bodies healthy, getting their bodies strong, that led us into a season that allows us to come in this year and be ready to go.
When you talk about implementing your systems and putting your imprint on this team, what's the identity of a Macy Donathan coach team?
I think the biggest thing, and I don't use this word often, but I want them to be confident. I think sometimes when you come from a program that, obviously competes at a high level, but winning is really hard here. It's hard to do here. And we have a team that has been a part of that for a long time. But instilling this confidence in them that, one, you're here for a reason. And two, there's no reason, there's nothing in your way right now for you to go and be competitive unless it's yourself, right? If you're going to have some self-doubt and confusion and things like that, that's going to deter you from being able to win and trying to operate at our peak as often as possible is where we want to be. So just speaking life into them and speaking good things, and just knowing that, yeah, you do get up at 5:30 in the morning. Yeah, you do morning formation. You do go to class in person and you don't get to do class from your bed. You do noon meal formation. You do go to practice and you work hard. And then you got to go back and do homework in your dorm. You live in a dorm, not an apartment. So I think they're starting to realize that all the daily things that they encounter are building them toward success, not taking them away from it, and trying to bring that into the volleyball gym. And so I think they're coming at this with just a newfound confidence in what they are capable of doing. And, you do this for a year and it lays a foundation for them to feel like we're clicking now. So It's been good to see.
Macy Donathan, head coach of the Air Force volleyball team, my guess. One player that has really stuck out is Alyssa Walker. She's really become a key piece of your team here in her sophomore season. And last year, I think she averaged about a half a kill a set for you. And now she's well over, I think, 3 now.
She is.
What have you noticed with her that has allowed her to take such a huge step forward for you?
Yeah, so I think maybe to give some context, last year she was a freshman and she came off of basic training straight into a season. And for any freshman doing that or experiencing that, you're not going to get them at their best for at least 8 weeks, and even then, they're probably not going to weigh as much as they typically do, or they're just going to be tired and fatigued, and you've got school beaten down the door as well. So, but from my coach's eye last year, you could see she can pass nails. She can pass like crazy. She can block. She moves really well. Her IQ is just insane. So it wasn't a matter of if Alyssa Walker was going to get out there. It was a matter of when. And, she dealt with some shin splints last year, and she's had some time to be able to recover and get her body in a great place. And clearly you're seeing the result of that this season. She's strong. There's no one in the gym that has an arm like her. And so even though she's on the shorter end of things, she can jump and she's strong and she can swing through any block, really. And so she's putting on a show right now, and I'm really enjoying watching her play. And it's just funny when teams see a kid who this is kind of her first go of playing all 6 rotations at a collegiate level. They're going to pick on her and serve her. And I'm like, bring it. Alyssa can handle that. I don't think you know who she is, but, she's just a wonderful passer, wonderful player. But even just coaching her as a person, there's no one more ready and fit for this kind of role to take a team and help them transition into what we are right now.
Macy Donathan, my guest, in just talking to you now, the passion that you have for your athletes, but also the passion you have for this program. You were an All-American at Arizona State. You've coached at some really big schools. I mean, it takes a different mindset to coach at the Air Force Academy. What drew you here?
Yeah, I think you hit it right there. That mindset that you need, the space that you kind of have to be in to coach here is what I align with. When you're in that phase of collegiate sports where NIL is everywhere and it's abundant and everyone's talking about it. How much are you getting paid? Are you on scholarship? Are you not? Those types of conversations. I was a part of those in the past, and I love that athletes are getting those opportunities now that maybe didn't get those in the past. I think it's worth our while to pursue that. At the same point, I get to coach a team that is not a part of what we do. They're a part of being, leaders. That's what we're producing here, is leaders and people who are going to be a part of our military and be a part of protecting our people. As a former volleyball player at Arizona State, that is not even something that was on my radar. But now that I see there is a program out here that has these values, that from the bottom to the top, it is about producing leaders of character. As a coach, I'm like, heck yeah, I want to be a part of that. That's exactly who I want to coach, and the people who want to be here and pursue this as a calling of theirs. That just blows my mind, and the fact that I get to coach that kind of athlete on top of it all is just awesome. And I truly have their back. I truly believe in what they do and support them in pursuing not just their volleyball goals, but their personal goals and their life goals. And there's just no better place to do it than here, and to get that kind of person that wants to do it and do it this way than here.
Yeah, and I'm an advocate for NIL, and I think it's a little bit nutty out there right now with no guardrails on it. But the premise of it, I'm with you. It's a good thing overall, but it's like at Air Force and at other service academies, it's more traditional. Not better, not worse, I wouldn't say. I guess I have an affinity for the folks up at the academy, so maybe I prefer that, but it's a more traditional form of college athletics, and there's so much new and different, and some people may not like it, some people do, but here at the academy, there is that college sports feel that I think is getting lost in all of this. Macy, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely, you can see it, that there's naturally going to be some attention and maybe drama, if you want to call it, on teams when you're discussing money and finances and who's being supported, how are they being supported, who's going to make that final call, who's getting that kind of funding. That just naturally is going to seep into a college team when that becomes a factor. And as much as you try and avoid it and don't want that to be the case, it absolutely is. And for us, I think that's just not even a part of the conversation. Our conversations are, how can we be better as a team? How can we interact with each other to improve our direction on the court? It's just, NIL is just not even something that's on the table for us. And yet in that same vein, our whole purpose here is obviously to create leaders, but when our girls graduate, they have a job lined up. They have been trained for that job. They get a full salary, full-time position as a second lieutenant. And for some, I think that can be scary, like just being in military in general, that can be a daunting thing, but the return of what they get after the fact, I think, in my opinion, supersedes what they may receive in an NIL deal for another team. Again, having played at a high level, Power 5, had a great career, when I graduated, hands were clean. It was like, all right, thanks for playing for us, and have fun doing whatever the heck you're going to do with your communications degree, And I did not, as a coach, I did not want to be in a place where I felt like I couldn't prepare my girls for something after college. And this place just sets it all up. And it's great for those who have specific desires. I want to go be a doctor. I want to go be a pilot. Like, those are options laid out for you. And it's great for those who don't know what they want to do. And they get to figure that out along the way and have security at the end of their career, so they're not lost. At the end when they're graduating, they have a plan. And I just think that I'm way on board for that.
Yeah. Very cool. Macy Donathan, my guest. So let's talk about this week for your team. Conference season's right around the corner. Mountain West is not going to be easy, unfortunately, I guess, or fortunate.
Yeah.
You're a competitor.
Yeah,
you're okay with the Mountain West being as competitive as it is, but obviously things ratchet up once you get to the conference schedule. So out of these last three matches, what do you want to get? What, maybe I won't say what's missing, but kind of what's that next thing that you're looking to add or elevate before you get going against the teams that you battle with year in and year out?
Yeah, I think for us, health and recovery is a big piece of what we have to do and take care of. It is very easy for our girls to get run down a little bit. And as much as they want to perform, like as a coach, I have to make sure that their bodies are good, because my ultimate goal is consistency. We have a wonderful, first 3 weeks of preseason, and now we're in that space where our bodies are starting to get a little run down. And so for this weekend, this will probably be the most competitive weekend we've had so far. I am thankful we're at home and we get to have our home crowd and we get to have a little bit of an advantage there. But ultimately, I know our team systematically is in a really good place. And so just trying to make sure that that stays where it needs to be for us to perform. They're going to be bigger blockers than we've seen all year, bigger teams in general, and just a little bit more effective than maybe we've seen in teams that we've played so far. So we're going to have to play clean. We're going to have to play well. And that's not something I'm worried about. I am worried that we'll start to veer off into the weeds a little bit when something doesn't work, and just bringing that back in and putting some guardrails up for them. But honestly, I'm excited to see them perform. And we've been able to put some freshmen out on the floor the last couple weeks. That's been an exciting thing to see. And just, we had our starters those first 3 matches, and we've put in other people and they have performed and done a really nice job. So a great runway for us to see other kids. And now we're heading into a weekend where it's going to be a little bit more challenging than what we've seen, and I think we're ready for it.
Well, the Falcons have already taken care of a service academy rival. How about a couple of in-state rivals? DU tomorrow night, Northern Colorado on Friday, and then Utah Tech to close things out Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Go out, support. You heard Macy. They want the home crowd behind them. They want that gym to be a tough place to play. So if you can make it out for all 3 or just one, just get out there, check out this team. They have been playing amazingly well, and I can attest that the Falcons are welcoming all comers onto the bandwagon, yours truly included. And Macy, for that, I certainly do appreciate it, and I appreciate the time. Great to meet you. Best of luck. And this will not be the last time that you and I chat, at least from my end. I don't know how it went for you, but
Yeah,
I will be reaching out and getting you back on as we enter the conference season. Thanks so much.
Yeah, anytime. Loved it, Ryan. Thanks for having me on your show.
That is Macy Donathan, the head coach of the Air Force volleyball team. Again, tomorrow night, Friday night, and Saturday late morning. You can catch them at the Into the Blue Invitational on the campus of the United States Air Force Academy. Coming up next on the show, Gabriel Landeskog at Media Day says he's good to go. But is he good to go for 82? That question next on Extra Sports 1300. Trans-Siberian Orchestra returns to Colorado Springs with its winter tour, The Ghosts of Christmas Eve, for 2 spectacular shows on November 16th. That is a Sunday. 2:30 is the matinee. 7:30 is the other show at the Broadmoor World Arena. You can get your tickets now at axs.com or in person at the Pikes Peak Center box office. Colorado Avalanche had their media day today, which is exciting, not because media day itself is exciting, but it means that hockey season is just right around the corner. You pair that with me finding out which Air Force hockey games I'll be calling on altitude, and it's like, whoa, hockey's almost here. So excited about that. No bold proclamations from the Colorado Avalanche, but something that I think Jared Bednar has to know is going to get people's ears up. He says it's probably the deepest team the Avalanche have had since 2022. And you recall what happened in 2022, yes? So, and Jared Bednar knows that. Like, you don't just throw out anything about the year 2022, whether it's depth, talent, goaltending, that, our chances of winning the Stanley Cup. When you invoke that year, people are going to pay attention. But this is the whole, this is the continuation. This is the real experiment that Chris McFarland is trying, right? To be fair, as disappointing as the way last year ended and all that kind of stuff, you really couldn't fully judge the Colorado Avalanche with all the moves they made in a half a season. Right? You just can't do it. This grand experiment of we're going to sacrifice a cornerstone player in order to bring depth to our roster, shave off some of the top end talent and be deeper. This is the year that we really find out. Right? And it's not that you can't have your opinions on the Mikko Rantanen trade. At the time, you can. But we're going to really know now. We're going to know if this bet hits for Chris McFarland and the Colorado Avalanche. And Jared Bednar seems to think it will. This Avalanche team, I don't think they're alone in this. They still have to figure out the Dallas of it all. But they are one of the few teams in the NHL that can hoist the Stanley Cup. Even with losing Mikko Rantanen. They are. Are they the favorite to get out of the West? I got to see them beat Dallas. I'm sorry. I have to see it. I have to see Dallas implode, or I have to see the Avalanche go toe-to-toe with them and beat them, or at least I need to see, the majority of the season to decide if the Avalanche are much better than Dallas. But the Avalanche are right there, right? Dallas, the Avs, Winnipeg on paper should be. Coincidentally, all of them in the Central Division. Then you throw in Vegas. I think those are the teams that you look at first, and probably not Winnipeg just because of their playoff exploits. Dallas, Colorado, Vegas. Those are the top 3 contenders. And I know there are teams on the eastern side of things, including the Florida Panthers. Or Edmonton. I'm sorry, I forgot Edmonton. Edmonton, Vegas, Colorado, Dallas right now are the four I look at. And then there's Florida on the other side, right? They're the champs and all that goes along with that. But we'll find out. We'll find out if the depth was the issue. Because they are. There's no arguing that they're a deep team, that they're deeper than they were since 2022. I think what Jared Bednar says, even though there's an aspect to it where if you throw that year out, that people are going to take that and go, well, this is going to be another Avs Stanley Cup team. I don't think that's what Jared Bednar meant, but I think he knows that people are going to take it that way. But there's no arguing that they're deeper. The question just becomes, is that really how they do it, how they win a Stanley Cup this year? Or is the fact that they don't have Mikko Rantanen going to cost them? And that top-line talent, does the top-line talent actually matter more? We'll find out this year. Now, there's the contract questions around Marty Necas. He said that they're talking. The two sides are talking. His representatives are handling it. He's not heavily involved. I think it's rightly his representatives going, hey, there's going to be a lot of teams with cap space that are going to want my client. And not all of these guys were building up this free agent class to be the greatest in NHL history. I don't know if every single one of these players, Kyle Connor, Marty Necas, Connor McDavid, you go on down the list, Kirill Kaprizov, I don't know that they're all going to be free agents. I don't think they'll all be free agents. And I think that's part of the calculation here from Necas's camp is like all these guys aren't going to hit the market. But all these teams are preparing as if they are because you have to. And now with not quite as great of a free agent class, now Marty Necas is near the top of it, assuming that he puts together an incredibly productive season playing next to Nathan MacKinnon. But I think it's on Necas' side. Either way, Avs got to get this done. They can't let this thing drag out all the way through the season and risk losing Marty Necas. But we've seen this with the Broncos and that Nick Bonito deal. We've seen it in other places in the NFL. The deadline that gets deals done, the start of the season, we're still a little ways away. We got the rest of this month and the beginning of next month before the Avs are on the ice in a real game. So there's still time. But the Avs need to get that piece of business done. And then there's Gabriel Landeskog. He says, I'm ready to go. And he added that he didn't work like he did to get back from this injury that no one in the NHL history has ever returned from, to not win a Stanley Cup and not win multiple. So there's your bold proclamation that as long as Gabriel Landeskog is on the Colorado Avalanche, the expectation is not one, not two, maybe not three. My question with him is, can he last 82? Is he going to be load managed throughout the season in order to make sure he's right? Because he was really good when he got back on the ice. But I still think 82 for Gabriel Landeskog is a bit much. And we'll see how Jared Bednar handles that. So deepest team since 2022. And Gabriel Landeskog went all LeBron. 719-24-7. 13-13. Coming up next, CU has reportedly named their starting quarterback, or knows their starting quarterback for Saturday. Why, it probably doesn't matter. Welcome in, Drive Time Sports on this Wednesday. Glad to have you and appreciate you watching the show whenever you get the opportunity on our social media platforms, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. The handle the same in all of those places at XTRA Sports 1300. Jessica Mendoza of KKTV 11 will join me coming up in the next segment to talk some Broncos as they get ready for their first division game of the year against the LA Chargers. But in the meantime, let's talk football, but of the college variety. A report from CBS Sports today says that the Buffs are going back to Caden Salter as their starting quarterback. Buffs this weekend play Wyoming. They're going back to Caden Salter. Now, if you recall last week, Deion Sanders lectured everyone about the media's need to just be first and not be right all the time. And yet the report last week was that he decided on Ryan Staub, and lo and behold, Ryan Staub started the game. So what was that big old lecture about? Well, if you listen to the show, I told you what it was about. It was a deflection. Because things are not going well. There's not a lot of good news to provide. And Deion Sanders and his methods and his ideas are being called into question. So let's turn it around. Let's make it about the media and not about the football program. Now, this report came out after Deion Sanders' weekly press conference, so we won't have any lecture going on here. But so I'll ask the obvious question. Why? Why? Why go back to Caden Salter? Ryan Staub, was he good against Houston? No. 54% completion percentage, threw a couple of picks. He had his moments, but overall wasn't good enough. And I would certainly acknowledge that. But yet, he doesn't, he gets 3 plays in the third quarter. Right? Let me defend Ryan Staub for just a moment. When you only can run 3 plays in a quarter because the other team is dominating possession, it's kind of tough to then go back in the fourth quarter and, oh, by the way, the Buffs at that point when Ryan Staub takes the field again are down by 2 touchdowns. So I'll give Ryan Staub that. Overall, was he good enough? No. So I ask, why go back to Caden Salter? Are you putting that performance on Ryan Staub? Are you saying the reason why the Buffs lost to Houston was Ryan Staub? So now you have to go back to Caden Salter? Because I don't think the reason you lost was Ryan Staub. I don't think he did anything, much of anything or enough for you to win, but he wasn't the main reason why you lost. But clearly you're using him as the scapegoat and you're going back to Caden Salter and leaving Ryan Staub alone for a moment. Why just go 1 game away from Caden Salter? Let's just even go back to the beginning of all of this. Why would you bench Caden Salter to begin with? Why would you do all of this? There's no rhyme or reason to it. There's no football reason other than the Buffs are grasping at straws to bench Caden Salter only to bring him back a week later. What lesson has he learned? You think it's good for your football team that the most important position is a rotating cast of characters? This week, standing in for CU quarterback number 1, Caden Salter. And then next week, it's the understudy, Ryan Staub. You think that's a good dynamic to have on your football team? If you were going to go back to Caden Salter this quickly, if you had any indication, any inkling that this might happen, you should have just stuck with Caden Salter. There was no reason. This is the fact of the matter. There's no reason for the Colorado Buffaloes to bench Caden Salter. None. But they did it anyway, and now they're benching Ryan Staub just to go back to Caden Salter. And I wonder if both quarterbacks' confidence are wrecked, and I wonder the impact on this football team that their leader, the most important position, they don't know who is going to be week in and week out. And also the signal that it sends that Deion Sanders decides to change them every week. Nope, he's not good enough, new guy. Nope, he's not good enough, put in a. How much confidence does that have throughout the team? Does confidence permeate throughout this team? Like we're confident no matter who he puts back there. No. How can you be? It could be Julian Lewis next week for all you know. The Buffs and Deion Sanders specifically, they panic and they make a bad move and then they panic about that move and they compound it and they pile onto it and it doesn't get better. It only gets worse. You should have just stuck with Caden Salter. If you and maybe Deion Sanders doesn't think that far ahead. Maybe that's the issue here. I understand that coaches go one game at a time, but you got to take the macro into account too. And you got to go, all right, if Ryan Staub succeeds on Saturday, he's our guy. If he doesn't, what are we going to do? You have to think through those things. You don't have to put it out into the world. You don't have to even talk to your team about it. But you guys, in your own mind, think about it, and you have to think if you're willing to go back to Caden Salter after just one game, a game that the defense was the main reason why you lost, not Ryan Staub, that maybe you should just stick with Caden Salter. And also not very much a surprise, if we're being honest, that quarterback 3 on the depth chart, a guy that wasn't even discussed by the Buffs as being a candidate to start for them, was not as good as Caden Salter, which you could look at the numbers and make that argument. It's getting worse. The decision-making, the knee-jerk reactions, it's not a good thing for a football team to have all of this going on. And it doesn't engender confidence. And when Deion Sanders says something like this, I don't know who's buying this line.
We're getting there. And we're going to get there within the next, maybe Saturday, maybe a couple games after that, but we're going to get there with the consistency that we desire. I can see it. We're going to get there.
Funny you should bring up the word consistency, because I would ask, where is the consistency from you? The most visible, the most important position on your field, on the field, and on your football team, you're changing it out like you change your socks. How is that consistent? Or are you hoping that you yourself will be consistent at some point this year? Because you should be consistent. You should be steadfast. He should only be talking about his football team, his players. But yet you have to loop him into it because he's been the least consistent of anybody. In fact, the team has been quite consistent in how poorly they have played. If I had to say that either the players or the coaching staff are the more consistent ones, I'd say the players, not consistent in a good way, but consistent nonetheless. What's that saying? Practice what you preach. You're hoping your team gets that consistency. Maybe it should start with you. Maybe you should show some consistency and then expect it out of your team. So we'll see if Caden Salter does indeed start. Again, CBS Sports reporting that they're going back to Salter after just one game of benching him. And here's another Deion thing that has become a theme throughout this year. Deion Sanders acting like he doesn't understand what something means. Here you go.
I don't care what kind of car we pull up in. Long as we pull out of here with a W, I'm good. So I don't really get into the identity thing, not whatsoever. I would like to do some things better. We like to stop the run. We like to run the ball. We like to be consistent offensively and defensively. We'd love to do those things better, but I can't be narrowed down with what's your identity? What does that mean? What does that mean? What's your identity? I don't even know what that means.
Okay, well, you talked about how you don't get wrapped up in identity to start, and then you say you don't know. This, of course, on the heels of last week, him pretending not to understand what a solidified quarterback means. He knows what an identity means. And you know what? Today, the passing game coordinator of the Colorado Buffaloes said, quote, "We need to find an identity." His own coaches are not only understanding what identity means, they're saying it's important for the Buffs to have one. And here's the head coach, here's the face of the program saying it doesn't matter, and then he doesn't understand what it means. He doesn't know what it means. He knows exactly what it means. And the reason why he's once again deflecting is because if you don't know what your team's identity is, they don't have one. And what is another way to put an identity? Something that you know that no matter what, you can count on more often than not. I think it was Mark Kisla who asked him the question, and I think it was Kisla who said the thing you hang your hat on or something like that. Deion Sanders knows what it means. His team doesn't have one. It's incredibly problematic. And so he deflects instead of saying he don't want to admit that they don't have an identity, that they do nothing well right now. Because that would not be selling the idea of hope going forward this season. So pretend that you don't understand what that means and deflect. It is somewhat disappointing enough that the players on the field here in year 3 are not performing at a decently high level. But it is more disappointing and more concerning that this is the type of stuff you're getting at the top of the program. Deion Sanders in year 3 at the highest level of college football is having problems answering questions. He's having problems with consistency. That's the more problematic thing. That's the more troubling thing if you're a CU fan. Is the things that Deion Sanders has said and done in less than a month. And it gives off the feeling that he doesn't know what the heck is going on. He doesn't know. He has no answers. He thought it would be Caden Salter. He thought that the team would be good. They're not right now, and he doesn't know how to fix it. Maybe that's not the case, but Deion Sanders, that's the impression that I'm getting. You know what solidified quarterback means. You know what identity means. Just answer the question. Don't deflect. We don't have an identity right now, but we're going to find one. Exactly what his passing game coordinator said today. And again, the consistency. You want your team to be consistent. You need to be consistent and pick a quarterback and stick with them. Did Ryan Staub deserve to get benched after one game? No. Did Caden Salter? No. Back and forth we go. Buffs Cowboys on Saturday. Take your thoughts. 719-24-7. 1313. Coming up next, Jessica Mendoza will join me to talk Broncos Chargers here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. It's a biggie on Sunday as the Denver Broncos take on one of the more impressive teams so far this NFL season, that being the LA Chargers. And oh, by the way, they reside in the same division. Joining me now to discuss is Jessica Mendoza from KKTV 11. Jessica, pleasure as always. How are you?
Doing good today. I wish it was Friday, but we're close.
we're getting there. Let's take the Broncos in the more macro. Through 2 games, the most concerning thing about the Broncos is what?
Through 2 games, large picture, I would just say it's their inability to play complementary football so far. I mean, I think that fans are just eager to see that version of this team. If both the offense and the defense are firing full force, what can they really look like? And I think that's a little bit of a positive for the fan base, right? Because hey, we haven't really seen what this team is fully capable of. And if the defense was playing better, I think last Sunday's game would be completely different. But it's just an inability to kind of get up, get going on, in all 3 phases, really. And so I think that's what fans should be looking for this Sunday.
I was just going to ask that because the obvious sports media question, is this a must win after the Broncos lost the way they did to the Colts? I'm not there. Are you?
No, I'm not there either, especially when you're looking at the division. And, some things are kind of shocking so far when it comes to the Chiefs and the Raiders. I don't think people expected that start, especially from Kansas City. So I think that certainly helps. I don't think it's a must-win game, but, we could be getting there going into maybe week 4 otherwise.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. I'll already set the table for next week. Broncos lose. If they lose on Sunday, Cincinnati game must win, especially now that Joe Burrow is out. I found it. Did you hear Sean Payton today?
A little bit, yeah. I've been kind of running around, but it's been those days.
Yeah, did you hear him talk about, of course, it was to stroll down memory lane, something that Parcells told him, about that Colts game. I thought, I kind of roll my eyes sometimes when he starts, telling back in my day stories, but I thought the perspective was kind of interesting because I think we put so much on the defense from Sunday. I think rightly, but here's Sean Payton saying that's kind of the way the game went. And it sounded like he put more on the offense's shortcomings on Sunday. Did you get that vibe from that?
Well, I get the vibe that he always kind of tends to, when we want to pick apart the defense and what might have went wrong defensively, I always feel like Sean Payton kind of walks it back to talk about what his unit could have done better. And we always talk about how he's really protective over Bo Nix too at the same time. But I think he tends to talk about, this is where he's really picky. This is where he's paying the most attention to on the sideline. And so, yeah, I think it's good that he kind of has that tendency to do that. And he has really high expectations of this unit this year. He talks about, the growth that he doesn't want to talk about it too much anymore, but he has talked about the growth of Bo Nix and the relationship that he has with his receivers, his offensive line. And I did kind of get that feeling from him even on Monday on the conference call. I think it started with, like what happened with this defense. And by the end of a very long drawn out answer, he was talking about, the red zone mistakes that the offense made and their inability to capitalize on their trips to the red zone and turnovers and penalties. And really that was the name of the game for the offense. So, yeah, I think that it's good that he's kind of being tougher on them rather than just making it our defense was the problem kind of thing.
Jessica Mendoza, my guest, KKTV 11. Is Troy Franklin officially a thing, or do you need to see a little bit more?
I think he's officially wide receiver number 2 for this team. Cortland Sutton was speaking really highly of him, not only his play on the field today, but, he was also talking about just his personality. And it's weird as, we've talked to him multiple times one-on-one in the locker room. He is super, I don't know if it's shy, but he's very short. He's not a guy of many words, but Cortland Sutton was saying today he's a yes sir, no sir, asking lots of questions from training camp and on. And I think it's just been really, really good to see his growth from year 1 to year 2. You and I talked last night about his connection with Bo Nix. I mean, I think it shines through, yeah, like on a day-to-day basis, from just seeing him out at practice to, completions out on Sundays. So, yeah, I think he's definitely, starting to evolve into wide receiver too. And it's really good to see, the Duck connection out there too.
Why isn't Evan Ingram on the field more?
It's a great question. That's a great question. And I don't know if you saw, he didn't practice today.
I did not see that.
Yep, he was a non-participant at practice today for a back injury.
I mean, that's troubling.
Yeah.
But did he have the best? So are we attributing that to his snap count the last 2 weeks, or do you think that maybe this is something new and we're still trying to figure out why he wasn't on the field more against, I guess, Indy? With the Titans, he had the excuse because he had the injury, but
Sure.
like, do you think he was more banged up than we thought, or do you think that there's some other reason at play here on why Evan Ingram hasn't been seen as much as we were expecting?
I can only say that it has to have something to do with some sort of injury, whether it's been this back injury, whether it's been something else that's been nagging. The problem is that, then he should have been on the injury report. But with all of the hype and the talk, and I don't feel like it was really media driven. I feel like, the media was asking questions about Evan Ingram, and Sean Payton was equally as excited about this potential joker to his offense. So I think it has been a huge head scratcher as to why he hasn't been more involved. And then you kind of saw late in the game that he was having some sort of injury issue. So yeah, I that's the only thing that I can think of as to why he hasn't been more involved.
More important to get healthy and on the field, Evan Ingram or Dre Greenlaw?
I'm going to have to say it's Dre Greenlaw, just because of what we saw from Alex Singleton and Justin Strnad last week, despite Justin Strnad's 1 sack in that game. But it's a position group that's growing really, really thin. And another new addition to the injury report just moments ago is Justin Strnad also didn't practice today. So the 3 that didn't practice: Evan Ingram, Dre Greenlaw, and Justin Strnad. So I think, they have a good number of inside linebackers on the practice squad that can be brought up. But when you're thinking about playing a Chargers team and a mobile quarterback, those guys are going to be really important. And we also talked yesterday, Ryan, about some concerns with the secondary. So these guys in the defense are really important. And I think that just knowing the impact, another guy we were really excited about in the offseason, Dre Greenlaw, you can feel him when he steps onto the field. You can hear him coming, his speed, all of that stuff. I've been really excited to see that. So I'm hoping we're going to get a healthy Dre Greenlaw next week. I mean, it would only make sense why they didn't put him on IR if he's good to go next week.
Jessica Mendoza, my guest. I'm bouncing around a little bit here, but what was your reaction to the leverage call against the Colts?
Yeah, shocked, 100%. I mean, this is a call that we hear how often? I mean, it's such a rare penalty. So certainly shocked. And I think immediately when finding out that they were going to get an extra 15 yards on that next kick, it was game over. This was a lost game. But 100% the right call. Just very unfortunate timing. And I think Sean Payton handled it very well the last few days, taking responsibility and, kind of calling out that it was too aggressive of a play call for that. And that's ultimately why we had leverage there in that moment was, he was just trying to be too aggressive. And I think that's a good way to put it when, you want your team and your coach to be aggressive, but obviously it just went the wrong way for the Broncos.
Was that the biggest mistake of the game, in your opinion?
No, absolutely not.
Which
It should've-
which one? Which one was it? The interception, the spike, the offensive face mask, the doink.
Do I have to pick one? Can I not like group
Yes.
a couple of them together? But it's
Oh, okay.
all of
Well,
those.
I'll hear you out, and then I'll go back and say no, that wasn't acceptable. Go ahead.
Well,
Link a couple of them together.
Here's the thing, Ryan. You score touchdowns on 4 of your first 6 drives in that game, right? And then
Mhm.
your last 3, you come up with nothing. And it's all due to, as I said before, penalties, interception, missed field goal. And you don't want to, you want to allow Bo Nix to throw an interception every once in a while. And you want to allow Will Lutz to miss a field goal every once in a while. Like that, those things are going to happen. You can't expect perfection in the NFL. And same with penalties. I mean, this team certainly has had too many, and we would love to see those get cleaned up. But it was the culmination of all of those things to end a game as the defense wasn't holding their weight. And that's where it really all just fell apart for me. So does that answer your question?
No, that's acceptable. That's
Okay,
good. I was a little hesitant that it was, but it works. So we have established that Sunday it would be really good if the Broncos won for a lot of reasons. They don't have to win. It's still early. I just think the question was a little interesting because the Chargers are off to a 2-0 start. It's like everybody plays the same amount of divisional games. Like you'll catch up. So I didn't quite get that, but it was more of a question of just trying to lead Sean Payton into talking about the importance of the game. So you mentioned complimentary football. Is that what you're looking for to say? What is, I guess the question is, what is an acceptable result here, given what you have seen over the last 2 weeks for the Denver Broncos?
Yeah, I think that's a good question because we're not saying it's a must-win game. So what do we need to see?
Right.
I think it's a continuation of what we saw from the offense against the Colts early on in the game, and just playing that way a little bit more consistently throughout the game. I really actually loved the scheme that we saw early on. Okay, they're running the football, they're getting Dobbins involved, and so more of that. Want to see more of that 100%. We want to see this team get out and score early so that they're not playing from behind to where they don't feel like they can stick with the run game. And then, I'm not necessarily defensively, I'm not looking for what we saw against the Titans because that was such a dominant performance, but just somewhere between like that team, that team that was, getting hype over the takeaways. They have to win the turnover battle. I think that's a lesson that we learned last year is this team rarely wins when they lose the turnover battle. And that was kind of the miracle about week 1 in the Titans. So, just that hunger to get to the quarterback, to, get a couple takeaways in any way that they can, but not expecting perfection. Again, it's just not what the defense cannot be what they were last week.
You could catch that game Sunday just after 2:00 on KKTV 11. What have you got in store on your 2 shows this evening?
Yep, we went inside the locker room talking to the guys about the Chargers, how excited they are to face their first divisional opponent, and just the kind of style that the Chargers play and how this team's preparing. Also, Avs Media Day. So we had a reporter there today. Got to hear from Landeskog and McKinnon, and just the excitement of this team to have Landy back, have their captain back, to start the season, and how hungry they are for another Stanley Cup, too.
Did you hear that Jared Bednar said that they were the deepest since 2022?
That is so good to hear.
Right. Ooh, and I don't think he meant it, like, hey, go ahead and book the parade. But when he says we're the deepest we've been since 2022, people are going to certainly seize on that. And so we'll look forward to hearing from Gabriel Landeskog. Will you include the clip of him answering a reporter's cell phone?
What? I didn't know.
Oh, you didn't see that? No. Yeah, it's fun. I don't get why this becomes like a story, but apparently somebody's phone rang on the table and Gabriel Landeskog just, without even thinking twice about it, just picked it up, knowing it was not his phone, obviously, but just picked it up and answered it. And
Okay, can
apparently,
you imagine? It's like, yeah, who is this? Oh, it's just Gabriel Landeskog. Like, whoever, they'll call you back. Like, what? That's crazy.
Right.
That's incredible.
right. And 90% of the people in my phone, if he picked it up, they would probably like say something mean to him, like because they would think it's me pretending to be Gabriel Landeskog or something stupid. And then Gabriel Landeskog would be wondering what company I keep. But yeah, so that's there. Probably focus more on whether he could play 82 games this year. That might be a
Yeah.
better use of your allotted time this evening.
No, I'll go check it out, though. That's incredible.
Jessica, appreciate the time and the insight as always, and we'll be watching at 5:30 and 10 this evening.
Thanks, Ryan.
You bet. That's Jessica Mendoza, KKTV 11 Sports. And again, 5:30 and 10 this evening. She'll be on as she typically is. 719-247-1313. Come back with some of your thoughts on this Wednesday. The Air Force Falcons are at Falcon Stadium this weekend, where they should be. Taking on Boise State. That'll be a big one on Saturday as the Falcons look to bounce back after that opening conference loss to Utah State. Kickoff is at 5 p.m. And if you would like to go, I have a 4-pack of tickets for you, as long as you are the 13th texter to text Falcons in your name to 719-247-1313. That's Falcons in your name to 719-247-1313. Aaron called in during the break, disagreed vehemently with both myself and Jessica Mendoza. Very animated. He yelled at me. And I'm not going to lie, I teared up a little bit. No, he called in and he thinks it is a must-win for the Denver Broncos. And I guess the question ultimately becomes that you have to ask yourself if you're a Broncos fan. You can invent 8,000 different ways that the Broncos could potentially lose on Sunday. Are any of them acceptable? If you phrase it that, if you look at it that way, let's say they lose by a last-second field goal. You going to be cool with that? And be like, all right, came down to the wire, we'll get him the next time. What if they lose on a Bo Nix interception? What if they lose because Justin Herbert and the Chargers offense scores a touchdown every time down the field? In sports, it's not that you lose, it's how you lose. I don't think that the math says they have to win. And as far as what I think this Broncos team is, I don't think they have to win. But when you look at it from that other side, is there any way to lose to the Chargers on Sunday that is acceptable? Given what you have seen, I know it's supposed to be a standalone game. Forget about what happened last week. We don't think that way. Broncos can think that way. Broncos should think that way. Don't worry about what happened last week. Just focus on this game. But when we converse about NFL teams, we bring the past into it. If the Broncos just perform well, and you could set whatever level of expectation for well on both sides of the football, if they play complementary football, as Jessica discussed, but they still lose because the Chargers are just a better team, is that going to be acceptable? Especially if you're someone that says that the Broncos can win the AFC West. Now, don't forget recent history. It's not like the Broncos are unable to go into LA and win football games. Right? It doesn't have the mystique, if you will, of Arrowhead. Right? The Broncos going into Arrowhead. I think even the most ardent Broncos supporters probably chalked up the game on Christmas at Arrowhead as a loss. SoFi doesn't have that. That's not a home field advantage. So why can't the Broncos go into LA and win? Why do they only have to wait for when the Chargers go to Empower Field? But the problem with that is you haven't seen a team over the last 2 weeks that you could feel confident is going anywhere other than Empower Field and winning a football game. So, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, well, maybe Aaron's right. Maybe it is a must-win. Because what if they have another special teams mistake? Is that not going to be incredibly problematic? That the Broncos 2 weeks in a row are losing on the margins, losing in that third phase that Sean Payton has put so much emphasis on, hiring his guy in Darren Rizzi and, bringing in all these players like Sherfield, who really can't help them out offensively, but is a very good special teams player. Is that acceptable? Maybe given what you have seen over the last couple of weeks, if the Broncos were 2-0, if this first two games have gone the way that many, including myself, expected them to, with the Broncos being 2-0, then you go, yeah, not a must win, but you got to show that you're right there with the Chargers. I think this team has a little bit more to prove after the first 2 weeks of the season, don't you? Maybe it is a must win. Maybe not a must win in terms of, again, the math. All hope is not lost of this team winning the division by losing one divisional game. But maybe it's a must win when it comes to the vibes or the confidence level for the Denver Broncos, around the Denver Broncos. Maybe only a win can make you feel better about where this team is at right now. And if they just follow up the Indianapolis loss with another loss to the Chargers, and now they're sitting at 1-2 going into the Bengals game, but with the Philadelphia Eagles lurking in a game that I think most people chalked up as a loss. So let's split the difference here. Aaron, if you're listening, how about this? Let's split the difference. It's not a must win. The season is not lost if they lose their first divisional game, but it's a must win in terms of the perception of this team. Right? To restore confidence in this team, maybe the Broncos do need to win. Because if they lose on a late Bo Nix interception, so continues the conversation about Bo Nix's decision-making. If they lose on another special teams play, it's once again the Broncos losing on the margins. If the Chargers win the game and put up 49 points, then you're wondering about the Broncos defense and whether it's all it's been cracked up to be. Is there a way that the Broncos can lose Sunday's game and restore your confidence? I'll let that hang out there as a question. We'll pick this conversation up tomorrow on the show. I think Aaron has a point. And maybe I'm just looking at it more from the standpoint of one divisional game does not a divisional race make. And the fact that the Chargers are off to a 2-0 start in division, good for them. Everyone's going to play the same amount of games. It's a good start for the Chargers, certainly, but Chiefs, Broncos, they'll both get their opportunities. Well, Broncos especially, since they haven't even played one divisional game yet. It's a long season. I think maybe that's the most important sentiment to have right now when it comes to the Denver Broncos. It's a long season. So be pondering that. Stu, let it marinate. Is there any way that the Broncos can lose on Sunday and still restore your confidence in this team? Also tomorrow on the show, Lorenzo Neal, former Charger, longtime NFL veteran, fullback, He will join me on the show to preview Sunday's game a little bit more from the Chargers' perspective. So looking forward to that. But I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about the real MVPs when it comes to testosterone replacement therapy. That's Synergenics and Low T Center. These guys have been changing lives for over a decade. They're the original pros in the game, and while plenty of others have jumped in, I'm sure you've heard from them, Synergenics and Low T Center continue to lead with the most medically driven, results-focused care out there. They're not just treating symptoms, they're restoring lives. They really are. Their approach is all about helping you feel stronger, sharper, more energized. Just talk to one of their patients. I have. You'll hear stories of renewed energy, better sleep, improved workouts, and even stronger relationships. Don't wait. Get to a center. Take your test. It'll only take you 15, 20 minutes. And start your journey back to feeling like yourself again. You'll be wishing you did it sooner. Visit trtmvp.com. That's trtmvp.com. Synergenics and Low T Center, the original MVPs of TRT.